What's up, ladies and gentlemen? My name's Seth, and we finally got some more information about MapleStory 2. Oh my goodness gracious. This is actually really exciting stuff, guys. We have a release date. We have details about the game. We have details about the new classes that they're going to be new for you global players, but they're not new as far as the Korean server is concerned, but it still is really exciting. We don't have any news about the striker coming just yet, but man alive, like, why am I sitting here just looking at this webpage? Because this baller right here ended up summarizing all of the stuff that recently has actually been talked about by a lot of the MapleStory streamers that actually ended up going to the MapleStory premiere event and actually talking right then and there with the developers. Now, there is going to end up being more news talked about within the following days, if not following weeks, and I'll of course bring that attention to you guys and gals as it ends up becoming apparent. Big shout out to my good pal Merc. He ended up letting me know about most of this stuff and then ended up linking me this post, and of course you can see comprehensive information and FAQ. It's got Twitch links to 4 different streamers that ended up talking about most of this stuff, and oh my goodness gracious. So the release date for MapleStory 2, which is a completely free-to-play game, by the way, because people are always asking me, is the game going to be free-to-play? Yes, you don't have to buy anything, okay? The game's release date is going to be October 10th at 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Ooh, that's beautiful. Seriously, really excited about that. You guys have no idea, because the Korean version of MapleStory has been out since, like, what, 2015 or something like that? I played it, and it was awesome. I love the game, and I dreamt of the day that it would possibly end up having a North American, or even in this case, North American European release. And finally, after so long, it's almost been like 5 years, and we're actually going to see the English version, and it's releasing this year in 2018, because we were really worried they were going to push it back to not only either the holiday release or sometime in 2019, but no, we're getting it around Halloween. And in fact, we're going to end up having an in-game Halloween event as well as some other stuff going on at the time as well. And we got some really cool stuff in regards to how the in-game is going to work. The devs talking about for the free-to-play and pay-to-win aspects of the game, but we'll talk about that in a minute, because I do want to let you guys and gals know that if you actually go to the Nexon website right now, I'll put a link in the description if you want to, you can actually buy a Founders Pack. Now, Founders Pack are going to vary. There's going to be pretty much a bronze, silver, and a gold tier, and of course, those are all going to vary in their price tag, but regardless of which Founders Pack you end up getting, you're going to be able to play MapleStory 2 a week before everybody else. That's right, anybody who ended up actually buying a Founders Pack or buys a Founders Pack from now until the release date is going to have access to the game servers October 1st. Now, from what I've heard, it doesn't say it in this forum post, but Merc told me that level 60 is going to be the new cap of the game, but we're not going to have access to level 60 until the full release of the game, October 10th. So for those of you freaks that go out farming as fast as you can, you're probably going to be able to get to level 50 with the Founders Pack week of play before everybody else. And then after the game launches October 10th, then you're going to be able to have an even playing field and be able to get to level 60. As far as I've heard, this is the only feature that's being held back. And now another thing too that's really cool is on the release of the game, we're going to actually have access to the Runeblader class, as well as 12 new dungeons. Quite exciting, because the closed beta didn't have access to all these extra dungeons, which means more raids and just more dungeon crawling in general. But the Runeblader, for those of you that don't know, is a very complex, very weird playstyle of a character. Essentially, you're going to end up being a sword fighting character. This is the character that I tried using on the Korean server, but generally speaking was very overly complex, so I never really got into it. Because of the fact that this class is going to use 3 different primary elements, at least I think it's 3. Fire, ice, and I don't know what the third one is. Maybe it's just fire and ice, but I'm pretty sure it's 3 different elements, and you're going to be cycling through those different elements while you're combating enemies and stuff like that. So he's kind of a more techie melee character that I would say is kind of around the same technical style of play as the Gunner, but not necessarily nearly as complicated or weird as that class is. The Runeblader looks very cool. And then the Striker character is going to end up being available to us later in the year. That character is going to be, or not the Striker, scratch that, the Soul Binder. I don't know why I made that mistake. The Soulbinder is going to end up being accessible to us in December of this year, and then the Striker is going to be coming out in 2019. The Soulbinder essentially is going to end up being a Dragon Ball Z character where you're going to be hurling energy balls at enemies, and you end up charging more energy as you end up doing damage or not taking hits. And it's a really, really fancy, beautiful character that a friend of mine, Stratos, I know, has been really wanting to main. So he's going to have that opportunity later this year, which is really, really cool. And those of you out there that actually want to know more about the character as well, which does mean that I will end up having over the following weeks. I don't know when I'll get the chance to do that, but I will hop onto the Korean server and explain to you guys and gals how the Runeblader works and how the Soulbinders work, or at least a very basic understanding of it, because I never really got into the Korean version to a point where I ended up leveling up my characters way past like level 20 or anything like that. So I don't have a full understanding of how these classes work, but I will end up making a proper tutorial about all of that, right? And it's really, really cool. Now, the other thing too is that today, it should be actually up right now if I'm not mistaken, we're going to have access to Mush King Royale, which is MapleStory's weird battle royale game mode. It's going to let up to 4 people fight, so I don't know if that's inherently like really, really good, because normally there's going to end up being like a whole ton of players. And I didn't really play the Mush King Royale very much during the closed beta, but essentially what it's going to be is you're going to drop off with a battle bus, and then you're going to be in a map with a couple other players where you'll end up picking up power-ups that'll essentially end up either making you really powerful or making you really weak, and you're just going to be sneaking around the environment. The fact that there's only 4 people though does mean we're going to have access to actually see and explore the map, because we're probably not going to get destroyed immediately like I did when I played Mush King Royale. And it's cool that they're giving us access to this mini game before the full release. So what that also entails is that founders up to this point could actually reserve names. And now, with the Mush King Royale, it means that everyone's going to be able to reserve their name. So the way that this is going to work, guys and gals, is you're going to go into MapleStory, you're going to create your character, doesn't matter what the class is, and then you're going to end up picking a username, and that means that nobody else is going to have access to that username so long as you've claimed it. Now, should the game end up releasing, and maybe you're thinking, oh, I want to play as the Runeblader, all you gotta do is time it appropriately, of course, but delete that character so that you free up your username and then create your Runeblader with that username, and then that's a way that you can end up keeping that username for your character, right? So there is also going to end up being I don't know if they said there's going to be some changes to it, but the fair fight and dungeon limit will stay in the game and not be removed. However, they have said that they're going to tweak that a bit. Fair fight, I didn't know what that was until Mark explained it to me. That's where you'll go into a dungeon as a high-level character, and it kind of brings your power down so you're not one-shotting bosses. Apparently, they're going to be changing that a bit, but they aren't going to be removing it. Another thing, too, that's really, really exciting is they've said how you're going to be able to create your house, and then you're going to be able to actually sell the blueprints to what your house actually looks like. So if somebody ends up actually coming up with the absolute best looking, like this is the most accessible house, you could actually buy that blueprint from that player if they end up selling it, and then loading up your house as that, should you end up having the proper resources. Now, with that, I guess what they're trying to do is kind of figure out a way that they can end up giving us custom dungeons and mini games. Now, the custom minigames immediately make sense, because what are people doing in their houses other than making obstacle courses? And if we could ever have access to the minigame controls and be able to actually create minigames within our houses, oh man alive, that would already step this game up to 11, but let alone having custom dungeons? Because we already have most of the same tools that the developers have in terms of how we actually build the map. And if they could end up introducing custom dungeons, they haven't promised it yet. They say that they're working on it. They're going to try their best to make it work. They don't know if they're able to. But if they give us custom dungeons, then this game can see infinite content without relying on the developers. Like, man alive, you have no idea how excited I am for all of this stuff. That is like so super duper cool. So then there's also going to be pre-registration. So that's, I guess, just making your account and stuff like that. That's going to be September 24th. While the game is going to end up releasing October 10th, we're going to end up seeing 3 updates within this year alone. So these are going to be 3 big updates. We're going to see the first update October 21st or 25th. Second update is going to be November 8th, and then the final third update is going to be December 6th, which I'm assuming December 6th is going to be the time where we're going to also end up getting the Soulbinder character, right? So they've also taken away Meret revives. So there's 2 currencies in the game. There's Meso, which is the in-game currency, and there's Meret, which is the cash shop currency. Normally you could actually spend Meret to end up reviving your character, but they ended up removing that. They also removed PvP gear, so you're just going to be naked like everybody else when you go to PvP. Apparently they're trying to really overhaul and balance all of the PvP so that it's something a little bit more fair, but also competitive and fun at the same time. Because the PvP kind of sucks. Even in the Korean version, it's pretty bad. You know, you just got characters that are overwhelmingly more powerful than the others. But it's really cool that they're actually working on that and trying to get rid of it all. One thing that they've removed from the game completely is Lumo Stones, which apparently is a pay-to-win fashion gems. So these are going to end up being essentially, I don't fully understand it, but the way that MapleStory works, and I've talked about this in many streams and many videos and stuff like that, is that when you end up getting to the end game, the game becomes pay to win. In that, you would end up grinding these gems that you end up putting on your gear, and in order to level up those gems or make them more powerful, you could either grind like a madman as a free-to-play player, and it would take like hundreds of hours to do so, or you could drop down some cash to buy the item that's required in order to level up your gems from the cash shop. They've removed that. The Korean version still has it. They've removed it from the global version, and generally speaking, guys and gals, the developers of the global version of MapleStory seem to be very adamant about making the game not pay to win, as least pay to win as possible. And with it, we've got one of the coolest, one of the best things that they could have ever done, not only for the longevity of the game, but also for them actually making some money. And I'll talk about this in a little bit here, but they have it so that you can actually trade the in-game currency for the cash shop currency. Now, you're not just going to be outright able to spend the in-game currency to buy the cash shop currency from the, you know, from the store or anything like that. You're going to be trading with other players. Now, why this is exciting is this is pretty much what Warframe has as far as their in-game currency. And Warframe is, I would argue, one of the most popular free-to-play games out there, for the simple fact that the developers keep on making it, and they took the route of actually making it so that free-to-play players have the opportunity to get access to all of the cash shop stuff, all of it. The way that it essentially works is a free-to-play player in Warframe will end up grinding various resources and items, not necessarily resources, but more so like characters and blueprints and mods and stuff that end up making your characters better. And they'll either level them up or just have them at base and gather all these weird, rare items that a cash shop player can end up coming around and just buying from them with the cash shop currency, thus giving them access to actually having platinum, which is the cash shop currency. Now we're seeing something very similar to that in MapleStory, in that we're going to be able to have access to the in-game currency, which the in-game currency is very useful and has plenty of pools to siphon the in-game currency out of the game and out of a player's inventory, so that it is always going to end up being something relevant. Now, of course, you know, you could argue that this means a cash shop player or a cash whale is going to be able to just throw their money at the game to be able to get themselves the best gear in the game, because they're going to be able to have a high amount of the in-game currency to end up buying all the best items off of the market. But you know what? It's better than them having a distinct advantage over other players by leveling up their gems and their gear and making it more powerful, right? Like, I'm perfectly fine with something like that, especially because people are going to trade for the cash shop currency regardless. This is just a fact when it comes to online games. So the fact that they're cutting out the middleman and not only letting us have access to being able to trade for the cash shop currency, but further than that, no external weird websites or anything like that. You're just outright going to be able to trade with the players, and thus free-to-play players are going to see the biggest benefit, because you're going to have access to the Meret system, which means that you're going to be able to get all of the perks that everybody else can end up getting, which is so super duper cool of them to end up actually doing. I think it's absolutely awesome. And in the long run is going to actually generate them more money. Because if you look at a game like Trove, which is a game that I made on the channel, it's created by Tryon Worlds. Tryon Worlds is not good at making free-to-play games. They just aren't. Because essentially what we have in this day and age with free-to-play games is they're kind of a freemium game, as we call them. Because technically you can play the game for free, but there is going to be some form of subscription fee that will give you access to more experience, more item drops, etc. Even MapleStory is going to be guilty of having something like this, right? It's going to be a monthly fee to end up having access to these things. However, what most free-to-play games will do is they'll have that subscription-based feature along with tons and tons of the in-game items costing real-life money, let alone access for cash shop players to end up essentially buying themselves the items that are required in order to end up upgrading and making your character more powerful. Trove has a very, very similar system to Korean's MapleStory, where you can end up buying these items that'll essentially end up increasing your gems, making them stronger, making them more powerful, so that pay-to-win players have a distinct advantage over free-to-play players, on top of also getting that subscription fee. So with MapleStory taking the direction of just getting rid of that, they still have the sub fee, the premium service, right? They're still going to keep that, but they're getting rid of all the other cash shop pay to win stuff. And with it, I believe that they're going to end up actually seeing more money overall, because the game is going to stay relevant for a much longer time. You look at a game like Trove, and because of all the cash shop stuff that they keep on iterating into the game, lots of people just keep on quitting, or quite literally are boycotting spending money on the game. Whereas when you have a system like this, like what they're doing with MapleStory, people are incentivized to spend money, not because the game is forcing you to, because out of the fact that you're so appreciative that they've made such a good, cool game, you want to spend money. You don't have any, like, you're not holding back. Path of Exile is a prime example of one of the all-time best free-to-play cash shop games in the world, because the only thing that you can end up buying in the game, or at least when I played it a couple years ago, the only thing you can buy in that game for cash is vanity items, and that's it. And because of it, they make thousands of dollars, because they'll end up having purchases where I think it's like $1,000 or $5,000, where these cash whales can go in, spend this big amount of money, and they actually get to have the help of the developers to design a legendary item in the game that is going to end up being balanced with the game. So I'm just really, really excited about what they're actually doing with all this MapleStory stuff, guys and gals. Like, seriously, I don't mean to ramble about it more so than I need to. But this is a seriously big deal, and I just wanted to kind of get that fact and get that point across. Now, again, I'm gonna have more videos coming out over the following weeks. Most of all, it's gonna be related to the Korean server. I do actually still have a pet tutorial video that I completely forgot I had the footage for on my computer, so you might see that just randomly show up on the channel out of nowhere. But when the game comes out, for those of you that don't know, I'm going to be having it as a main series on the channel. Really, really excited to get into it. You know, I'm going to have plenty of tutorials explaining things once I end up actually figuring out the different mechanics of the game. Later on, not necessarily in the version that we're getting, but all of the classes are going to end up getting a bit of a rework when the game ends up releasing. And further than that, we're going to end up seeing awakened classes, but that's going to be way further down the line. Essentially, it ends up being means to end up taking your class and just stepping it up to 11, where you're that much more powerful and your skills change and you're that much cooler. And look it up online, it's fairly impressive. I'm definitely still going to end up maining Berserker on this game, though. Man alive, I'm hyped. Thanks for watching, though, everybody. Don't forget to like, sub, and hit that notification bell. If you want to support me, you can hit that join button down below. That's going to give you membership to the YouTube channel, which gives you access to a couple specific perks. But then there's also going to end up being links in the description to my merch, along with everything about all this Nexon stuff, you know, the founders packs, the forum posts, blah, 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 blah. But then also, if you don't have any money and you want to support me, you can check out the links down below for Gawkbox as well as Solidarity app. I have videos that are also explaining what each of those do respectively. Sign on and stay epic, everybody.